What's up, Auburn? Pastor Crespo here with Pastor Dustin Hall from the Try Jesus Auburn podcast. Thank you for joining us for another episode. We are here with part 2 of the Christmas series.
Mm-hmm.
And before, of course, we get into that, how are you doing?
I'm good. Merry Christmas.
That's right. Merry Christmas. We are rocking Try Jesus Auburn merchandise,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, you want to look good this Christmas? I feel like I'm doing a commercial. Do you want to look good this Christmas season? Do you want to send a message to your friends, to your enemies, to strangers? Why don't you get a Try Jesus Auburn shirt? By the way, it's free. Where do you need to go, Dustin?
TryJesusAuburn.com.
There you go. You just need to go to TryJesusAuburn.com. Get yourself a free Christmas gift.
And they're not $19.95.
They're not $19.95. But wait, there's more. If you can go to the website to get online Bible studies. You can go to the website to ask questions of Pastor Dustin. You can also check out some of our previous episodes. You know that we are on Facebook. We're also on Spotify. But through the website, you can have a little bit more access. And I love to tell people, you know, we communicate with you through our episodes, but we would love to hear from you.
Mm-hmm.
And we do that through the website, TryJesusAuburn.com.
Yep. Ask questions, give episodes, topic suggestions. You can do anything like that on the website. Subscribe on YouTube too. That helps.
Yep, that's right. Like, share, subscribe.
Yep.
It helps us out. And look, if we seem to be having a lot of fun, it's because this is the most wonderful time of year, as the song goes.
Yeah,
it's a great time of year. It feels great to me because I saved up vacation time so that I can take a good part of this time to just, you know, I still go to work, but I wear a t-shirt. And you know, just get to relax and have a great time. And this series, these 4 episodes of Christmas, we are dedicating to just trying to share with you some of the deeper things of Christmas. I enjoyed that first one. You blew my mind at the end there. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you got to go back and watch it. But here we are once again. And now we want to get into, I want to throw some questions at you.
All right.
Because I think that, you know, if you are, whether you go to church or not, there are a lot of people that they know, for example, the baby Jesus, right? Mm-hmm. Whether you go to church or anything, you've seen things like that on TV. But how many people really know about the Christmas story?
Yeah.
They know elements. And so I want to ask you some questions. Mm-hmm. And we can, you know, take us wherever you feel you want us to go. Okay. All right. You ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Question number 1. Was Jesus born on December 25th?
Probably not. Probably not. Yeah, and I hate to burst people's bubbles.
Yeah.
You know, there's several reasons why. One of the reasons is, you know, the climate in the Holy Land during December is quite cold. And so shepherds probably would not be feeding their flocks by night in December over there.
Right.
Same hemisphere as us. So, you know, they're getting the winter. And it gets cold there too. So they're probably not doing that in December in Israel. And just some of the other elements and the dates and things of Jesus's life, it doesn't really line up that he'd be born in December anyway.
Right. Do you have a rough idea? We don't know when.
We don't know. They think maybe in the spring.
Okay.
Somewhere in that range. Right. The thing about it too is the December 25th has more to do with the winter solstice. And in our episode 4, we're going to talk a little bit more about that, the origins of some of the ways we celebrate Christmas and things.
So I have a question, but I'll wait until that episode to ask.
Okay. Yes. Yeah, please do. Make sure you ask that. But yeah, it probably has to do with the winter solstice. But yeah, Jesus most likely was not born on December 25th.
Right. So just a question. Of course, then, you know, we celebrate, and we can talk about the reasons for that later. Is there anything wrong with celebrating the birth of Christ?
Not
as a Christian, because, well, you know, depending on who you talk to, they kind of, you know, they want to, no, you can't do it. What's your take on that?
So, I mean, I don't think there's nothing in the Bible that specifically says honor the birth of Jesus, celebrate the birth of Jesus. But like if you look at the elements of what we talked about in the last episode about baby Jesus being born as a symbol that God chose us, you know.
Yeah.
The Bible does talk about the resurrection and all that stuff, and we celebrate that as Easter. But there's no biblical mandate to celebrate the birth of Jesus, but why not?
Right.
What would be wrong with honoring the birth of our Savior?
Right.
And especially when you look at some of the other customs that were happening in the winter with the pagan religions, we'll talk about this in a coming episode. Taking that and totally Christianizing it and making it about focusing on the birth of Jesus and God's promise to us and the light of Christmas and God's love. Absolutely 100%. I think is something the Christian can be a part of, or follower of Jesus.
I don't want to take this conversation off in a tangent, but I just, sometimes it just is sad, a little frustrating, because there are people who are not Christians who don't care about Christmas or talk about Jesus, right? And we think, hey, this is an opportunity to emphasize this, at least to connect with them. But then there are some people who are Christians who don't want to celebrate this.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, how far do you want to take this? This is an opportunity for us to take advantage. How many people have the words Jesus on their lips,
right,
that don't normally even go to church?
Right.
We should take advantage of the opportunity.
Yeah. I found it one of the times of the year that people are very open to talking about Jesus, the birth of Jesus. More and more, all the time, wanting to know the history, wanting to know what took place.
You've heard of C&E Christians, right?
Yeah.
Do you know what a C&E Christian is? It's Christmas and Easter Christians, that they only go to church during Christmas and Easter.
Yeah.
And if you do not take advantage of this time,
yeah, it's a beautiful time of year. Beautiful, beautiful time of year.
All right. Question number 2.
Yeah.
Was Jesus born in a stable?
Yeah, that's what the Bible says. If you want to read about the Christmas story, you can go to Luke 2, the book of Luke in the Bible, Luke 2, or Matthew chapters 1 and 2. It tells us all about it. It does say that Jesus was born in a stable, and the reason for that is really, I think, fascinating. So the reason that Mary and Joseph had left Nazareth and had come down to Bethlehem, which is not normally where they lived, was because there was a census going on. So they had to go back to the area of their birth and where their families were in order to be counted.
Right.
And so likely, yes, it was probably crowded.
Yeah.
No room at the inn. But they are going back to where all their family is. All of their family, both sides, Mary and Joseph, live in Bethlehem. They live in this area, and they can't find a place to stay. Mary is 9 months pregnant, and nobody that's in their family is letting them in. To me, that's more than just a space issue. I believe it's because they were ashamed that Mary was pregnant out of wedlock.
Oh, you know what? I don't think I've ever looked at it that way. Wow.
Yeah, I believe that's the reason.
Okay.
So they didn't want to leave him completely out on the street. So they said, oh, well, you can go back and sleep in the stable. Right. Thanks a lot. Right.
Yeah. Well, that would make sense, the way they shun people, have the baby out in the barn.
Right. Right. There were a lot of questions about Mary and if it was even Joseph's, and they weren't married yet. And so there was a lot of questions surrounding that, and not wanting to be defiled or counted with the sinners. So they sent him off into the stable where all the animals were.
I read connected to this, I read an article written by a pastor talking about the Christmas season, and he was taking it now from a spiritual point of view. So in his report, or his it wasn't a dissertation, but his article, he wrote that the devil had an idea of roughly the time when the Messiah would be born. If you study Daniel chapter 2, you get a rough idea, right? And he had done such a great job of bringing so much woe and misery to Bethlehem. Demon possession was higher because of the way we read how rampant it was. A lot of misery. And he thought he had everything covered, but then all of a sudden the census took place, and now everybody had to go everywhere. And imagine a pool table where you got the balls in a nice triangle, and all of a sudden somebody takes and hits those things, and what you thought you had. And I never thought about it that way, that the devil thought he had control about what was happening, trying to stop the Messiah. And God says, no, call for a census, and everybody has to go to their own home. And now everything is all over the place. And so Jesus is born in a stable to just, right under the nose of all these attempts to stop God's work.
Wow.
That was an interesting article.
Good stuff. Yeah. In somewhat in hiding. Yeah. Nobody knows he's back there.
That's interesting though. I never looked at that. I'm gonna have to steal that.
Yeah.
You know what occurred to me?
Do you actually steal stuff, or you just tell me that?
In
Tell me that
sermons?
yeah.
No, I steal ideas all the time. I don't steal things, but ideas, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, so he was born in a stable with all the animals, dirty, stinky, cold.
What, Dustin, we look at the meaning behind things in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a story, but then there's the meaning. Is there any virtue? Is there any meaning, any value that you would take out of it to the fact that Jesus was born in a stable? And stables are, even today's stables by today's standards, would have been a 5-star hotel room. So it must have been even worse back then. Yeah. Is there any value there?
I mean, as we were talking a minute ago, I was thinking, there is no one that Jesus can't identify with. The poorest of the poor, the people that the church has turned their back on. Well, these people were quote unquote believers that sent 9-month pregnant Mary to sleep in the stable. So the Bible says that he was tempted in all points like we are. He lived a real human life. He experienced all the experiences that we go through. Every person Jesus in some way can identify with. Yeah. And so from the time of his birth, all throughout his life, the rejection, the hatred, all of these things, Jesus has gone through. And so being born in such humble beginnings is a powerful statement. That God, the creator of the universe, born with such humble beginnings. Right. And to me, if you're writing the story, you're making it up. It's a lie. Why would you have him start that way? Yeah. It's not romantic enough. No, I mean, if he's the creator, the king of the universe, he's the Messiah, he's going to come with pomp and circumstance and power and honor. Right. But it was far from that. It was the opposite of that. Quiet and humble and poor and meek and dirty and just a totally different experience than what somebody would dream up.
Yeah, I think, just as you were saying that, the concept that someone does not want to talk about the things that they're dealing with because, you wouldn't understand. Mm-hmm. And as a pastor, I'm sure you probably have had that happen where someone is struggling, someone's hurting. You're trying to reach out to them, but they won't open up to you. Yeah, yeah. Because you won't understand. You don't understand what I've been through. Mm-hmm. And isn't it really cool is not the right word, but isn't it amazing to know that Jesus, you can't say that to him. Right. You can't say, no, you don't understand. No, he does.
Poor, rejected, weak.
Yeah. Abused, hated.
Yeah.
Yeah. Betrayed.
Right.
Betrayed. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's crazy. All Powerful. Right. A manger is Hebrew for baby crib, right? Yes or true or false?
No, false. False. No. A manger is a feeding trough. So, when you see the nativity scenes, and we alluded to this in the last episode, but you see this warm light, it looks like this pleasant experience, and it's so beautiful, and everyone's happy, and it's just so picturesque. Well, a manger is a feeding trough. It's where the animals go and stick their noses to eat their food. Yeah. And so Mary took swaddling cloths and maybe some of her own coats and things and laid it on top of the hay or whatever they had around them to make a bed for Jesus.
Swaddling cloths, strips of clothing.
Strips of cloth.
Yeah. Yep. Just okay.
Yep. And they wrapped him up in it and they put him in this.
He didn't even have a baby blanket.
No. I mean, she was somewhat unprepared to have this baby. And I'm sure when she went to Bethlehem, she wasn't thinking, my family isn't going to let me in. Yeah. I'm sure they thought, surely someone will help us.
Listen, when I was growing up, my mom worked hard to provide for us. I mean, she's just amazing. But I would compare myself to my friends. And one of the things that I would be angry at God about was that we were poor by just looking at other folks, we were poor. And I resented God for that. I never asked God to be born poor. And it's just interesting that I was angry at God who, if he wanted to, he could have said, what are you talking about, brother? I grew up poorer than you did.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
You want to know my first baby blanket were strips of clothing.
Yeah, and then Jesus was born in Bethlehem,
Right.
but he grew up in Nazareth, Egypt, and then Nazareth. Nazareth is basically the ghetto of Israel.
Yeah.
It's one of the poorest areas in all of Israel. It was then.
Yeah.
So, he can identify completely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow.
So manger's a feeding trough. So Jesus' first bed was where they fed their animals.
I'll be honest with you. I'm a little uncomfortable. It's true, obviously, but I get uncomfortable when we refer to that because I remember some years back we used to have a pony, and I built a lean-to shed for it, so it's like open on one side, and we built a trough out of cut slabs of wood, and after about a week, there was a layer of spit and it just horse spit.
Yeah.
It's all thick and nasty. And so, I would put hay in there and it just was nasty. It's like, oh, that's, I wouldn't want to even touch it because it just didn't want to come off your fingers. And all it was just the snot and the spit of the animal.
Wow.
That's what Jesus was born in. So I sometimes it's like,
amazing.
Yeah.
It's an amazing picture.
Why do that? You think, listen, can I be born in a middle-class home?
You're right. It would, again, that's something you dream up or make up.
What do you think, Dustin? If I said to you, Jesus did it intentionally so that he could identify. So it wasn't just the mission of him coming and dying, but every part. Sometimes I think we overanalyze things, so that's why I'm asking this. Do you think it's wrong to say that the fact that he came, the poorest of the poor, was intentional so that he could identify with every group of people? What do you think?
I mean, I think it has something to do with his mother. God chose Mary. He chose a woman in her station of life, in her situation, knowing what her future would hold. Yeah. So I think to some degree, yes, I think that it was intentional. God intentionally chose her in her position in that situation for a purpose. Wow. And it sometimes, I'll just, I don't think it's that unknown, but sometimes those of us with some means, and the more means you have, sometimes the harder your heart can get. So God chose Mary for a specific reason because her heart was in the right place. Right. And I think also her situation lended to who she was. Yeah. So
oh, absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
God chose that family for such a time as that. Yeah. And it's really interesting when you look at the genealogy of Jesus and some of the things that went into the life of Mary and Joseph, how God chose them at a certain time, at a certain place, and it had to be this year, and it had to be from that family, and it had to be from this lineage. It's truly incredible, the pieces that God put together for those two at that time.
It's amazing. All right, we have a couple more questions.
Okay.
Just the time tends to be our enemy a little bit, but did the wise men come on the same night?
Probably not. And the reason is it says they followed the star. And we're going to talk next episode all about the wise men because it's a fascinating story. In fact, their story starts 1,400 years before the birth of Jesus.
Okay.
It's incredible.
I look forward to that.
So they're following the star. And there is, amongst many people who study the Bible, the belief that the star that they saw was actually the angels that appeared to the shepherds. So the light of the angels in the sky was what the wise men saw that made them come and seek out baby Jesus. And we know that the angels appeared the night Jesus was born. Right. And so they saw that and started their journey. And we're going to find out next episode, they probably came from Iraq or Assyria, somewhere over in there. And so it would take a number of days to make that journey. Yeah. So most likely they were not there. Some have said, oh, well, maybe the star appeared prior to his birth and they got there just in time. Could be. Most likely not, though.
Yeah. And I don't know if you're going to talk about it, but in the next episode, but the idea of the fact that they executed babies 2 years old and under.
Right.
That was
Yes.
kind of gives a rough idea maybe of how long they
that's
traveled.
a good point. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
The decree to execute the
Right.
babies. When the wise men came and said, "Oh, the king, show us the king. Where's the king?" And so Herod became
Right.
threatened and 2 and under. So it could even
Yeah.
have been as much as 2 years. We
Right.
don't know exactly when Jesus' family left for Egypt to
Right,
live there,
right.
what the time frame was exactly. Yeah.
Okay, well let's end this episode talking
Okay.
about Mary, the mother of Jesus.
Okay. Yep.
Who is she? What's she about?
Man, the more you look into who Mary was, the more amazing the story gets. She's probably 14 or 15.
14-year-old unwed mother.
Yep, 14-year-old unwed mother who an angel came and said, "Hey, you're going to be the mother of the Savior of the world."
Mm-hmm.
And you see in her prayer there in the first few chapters of the Gospels, the gracious heart that she has, the love that she has, the servant attitude that Mary has. You can see why God chose her. It's truly powerful and amazing. She's probably 14 or 15. Joseph is most likely an older man who most marriages were arranged back then. And so Joseph perhaps had another family already. And Mary, maybe his wife had died, or we don't know the exact, circumstances there, but he's looking for a new wife. And Mary is betrothed to Joseph, who is an older man. It was fairly common back then. It was very common, I should say. So Mary, thinking that she's going to enter this new life with this older man, live out her life, be taken care of that way, all of a sudden gets this prophecy from the angel that you're going to become pregnant out of wedlock. So think about that for a minute. She thinks that her livelihood is going to be taken care of by this man that she's going to marry, and now this pregnancy is going to jeopardize her marriage to him. So she still willingly says, "Yes, I'll do it. I'll go through with it," which is kind of an amazing thing. Women back then were their whole livelihood was dependent on men. And here, this pregnancy from the baby Jesus is going to jeopardize her future, but yet she still willingly agrees to it. So, probably 14 or 15, when Joseph obviously listens to God, understands the circumstances, continues to take care of her. But the night Jesus, she's riding on a donkey all day, and if women have ever been in those final days of their pregnancy before they deliver, you're uncomfortable. And she's either walking some or riding some on the back of a donkey. It's got to be exhausting and tiring. And she gets to the stable because, as we said, they wouldn't let them in anywhere else. She gets to the stable, and Joseph, most likely, as most men back then that weren't shepherds, didn't have any experience in delivering children. Shepherds may, because they may have helped the sheep, deliver at times, their livestock. But we don't have any evidence that Joseph lived that kind of life. He's a carpenter. So
for all you know, she had the baby just with him.
She's 14 or 15. There's no midwives. There's no women around to help because they're a disgraced couple out in the stable. She's all by herself, 14 or 15 years old, delivering a baby in the dark, stinky stable. That's mind-boggling and mind-blowing. You can see why God chose her strength, her dedication, her purpose, her love, her service. And, this is an amazing thought that I've had numerous times. I'm a visual person, so I get pictures in my head. So we don't know if there was any torches or any fires lit. There may have been, there may not have been, but probably a window in the stable. So Mary gives birth to this baby on her own, can't really see his face, holds him up to the light from the moon shining in the window, and realizes the baby that she holds is the one who created the moon that's shining on his face.
Okay.
That'll just blow you away. He's the creator of the universe. You're holding him in your hand. He created the moon that's now giving light so she can see what he looks like.
Yeah.
It's an amazing picture and it's an amazing scene. But her courage, her strength, her determination, you can see why God chose her.
I'm a visual person as well. I was expecting to hear some piano music and hearing the song "Mary, Did You Know?" Get the Gaithers up in this place. That's incredible. I just made a little note as I was listening to you describe it. So, and of course, people got married a lot younger back then. I mean, 14-year-old getting married now would be, but back then they would do this type of thing. But she had to more than likely deliver this child on her own, and it wasn't comfortable. It was everything you just described.
Yeah.
And you'd wonder if it was someone else, they might just get angry with God. Why would you do this to me? And in her pain, she was exactly where God wanted her to be. Yeah. And so it's a crazy, amazing.
And I think as we close, I think the point that I want to leave people with is sometimes when you think of Jesus, when you think of the Christmas story, when you think of the birth of Jesus, we get these sort of fairy tale pictures. And it sort of makes Jesus not real, like it didn't actually happen. But if you stop and you think of it in this context, Mary was a real person and this was a real stable and the birth was really dirty and bloody and all the things that a birth is, and dirty especially because it's in a stable. This brings it into the real world. When you understand it on these terms, it brings it into the real world, and you can understand Jesus really came. He really was born. He really had parents. This is a real story in a real world for real people like you and me. Yeah. And we are the reason Jesus came. Yeah. And the Christmas story, as you alluded to in the last episode, yes, Jesus is the reason for the season, but we are the reason that Jesus came. Yeah. So in a sense, we are the reason for the season.
Right. Yeah.
And so it makes it real to us, this real story of a real woman giving birth in a real stable, relying only on her faith and on her strength to deliver this child. And it's powerful. Yeah. It's meaningful. It's life-changing. It connects what seems like a story to the real world. And you can realize all the promises that God makes to us are for the real world. They're not just for some fairy tale land.
I think, if you're watching this episode and you're listening to us have this conversation, the value to you will only be gleaned. It will only have value for you. Let me put it this way. This will only have value for you if you see it as this really happened. That Jesus did come. Now, I want to share something with you and then I'll let you close.
Okay.
When I became a Christian, when I made the decision I was going to be a Christian, give my life to the Lord, honestly, it had nothing to do with what he did 2,000 years ago. It had nothing to do with this story. It had nothing to do with the second coming. The experience that I had at that moment let me know that there was a God and he loved me, and that changed me. Now, with that knowledge, when I look back and then study the Christmas story, where I learn more about this God, really the value of Christmas stems from whether or not you truly believe that God is God. And if you believe Christmas is pointing to a real event, it's life-changing, right? Amazing.
Absolutely.
Well, you want to close out, say something to our followers?
I guess it's just that he did it for you. And I think there's a lot of people out there that have known about the Christmas story. They've known about Jesus. And maybe it's been I don't believe in that, or I'm not sure if that's true. I guess the appeal that I would have is, what if it is? I think there comes a point in everybody's life where you have to make a decision about Jesus. Yeah. And you have to ask yourself, what if it's true that he is who he says he is? What if this Christmas story really happened? And what if all these events and his death and resurrection really happened? What if it's true? And
that's a sermon title, man.
What if it's all real?
Yeah.
And people have been living, a lot of people out there have been living their lives as if it isn't, or haven't been giving it a thought. Yeah. What if you start living your life as if this actually happened? Yeah. And I guarantee you, if you start living your life that way, things will change for you. Yeah. Now, doesn't mean you're going to become rich. It doesn't mean you'll never have issues and problems. But there is a peace that passes all understanding, a deeper hope that you will begin to have when you surrender your heart to this idea that this Christmas story actually happened and he did it for you.
Powerful words. We're going to leave it there. We'll see you next time.